everybody. I'm Steve Peterson.
And I'm Jack Hinkle.
Welcome back to Chops Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the teaching trifecta. We talk about the best practices of teaching, knowing your content, and knowing your students.
And the love of your teaching, the love of your content, and the love of your students.
This is it.
You'll notice, if you're watching, we flipped our studio around this week.
We flipped it. It feels like
You're coming out of there. Yeah, you're live.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, yeah, we flipped the studio because if we flipped the camera back the other way where we were last week, it looks like a flea market. It looks like Shipshawana.
Looks like your son just moved out of his dorm for freshman year. Yeah.
I moved offices, so it's a little bit, we're in transition right now.
Everyone's moved offices except me.
I'm
just like,
Jack is like, doo, 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 doo. He's all safe, right?
I'm like, okay, everyone's moving. I'm just sitting here. This is fine. This is good.
Yep.
So we're about halfway through our summer, Steve.
This is true.
Well, let me rephrase that. I'm halfway through my summer. You've chosen to work this summer.
I've chosen to work.
I'm sorry. Or I'm happy for you.
Thank you, Jack.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Don't pity me. Don't pity me.
Not for that, at least. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's good. He just played at the Jazz Festival at Elkhart. He took Jazz 1.
That was
Great
fun.
set. Played with Dave Bennett, legendary
Yeah, if
musician.
you guys have never heard of Dave Bennett before, he's a clarinet cat out of Michigan, north of Detroit. He started playing professionally when he was 14. He's in his mid-30s now. He's
that young. Wow. Okay.
He's an absolute savage on clarinet.
And he has great hair.
Yeah,
Great hair.
Yeah, he's a dude. He's super nice guy. Was very appreciative and humble and eager to play with our kids. It was a great time.
It's fun to watch.
Then you got to see a band that you really like called Couch.
Do I get to shout out Couch on Chops?
Let's do it.
That's a good day.
Couch.
Hashtag
Okay.
Couch.
Tell us about that.
Band based from Boston that I kind of got into probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was like, oh, I like their vibe. Their stuff is cool. And then I just randomly saw on their Instagram, they're like, hey, we're going to be in Elkhart this summer. And I texted friends and I was like, guys, we have to go see them. So super nice group as well. Hung out with them after the first show 2 years ago. Got to know them and then kind of saw them in Indy once. Then they've been back here for the last 2 years. Funk, pop, soul. They're at a jazz festival. It's not
kind of
really
like
jazz.
Snarky Puppy.
Snarky Puppy is more jazz.
Okay.
These guys are more pop, funk.
Okay.
So 7-piece band, full rock band, singer, and then a trump player and a saxophone.
Okay.
Very fun. Very fun.
So that was an outdoor vibe concert?
Yeah, 10 p.m. to midnight.
Right.
Which was actually nice because it was 93 degrees this whole week.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool for that one.
Fireworks in the middle of it.
Fireworks in the middle of it. Yeah, it was a good time. And very late, very fun, very loud in a good way.
Yes. And it's on the South Main Street stage. Saturday night, I came back to the Lerner Theater, and I saw the Count Basie Orchestra with my family, which was outrageous, led by Scotty Barnard and a trumpet player, and they played in the Lerner Theater, which is our wonderful performing arts center downtown, but they give a 2-hour show with no break, and it was amazing. It was just hitting one after another, and it just sounded like you were listening to a recording.
That's awesome.
It was great. It was great. And so I went with my family.
Well, and you said there were some students there too that were totally digging it, which is really, really cool.
They found me afterwards and we were talking about it. So that was really fun.
That's awesome.
Meeting them. And so today we're going to be talking about I'm not intimidated by my students. Is that what we're talking about?
I'm not intimidated by teenagers.
Oh, I'm not intimidated by teenagers
anymore.
Which would imply the fact
that at one point I indeed was intimidated by teenagers. As a teenager, but also as an adult. It's true. Were you ever intimidated by teenagers in your early teaching years?
Oh, absolutely.
What is it about them? What is it?
I think, early on in my teaching, but it's probably the confidence and the reckless abandon. Is that
confident and reckless? Teenager in 2 words, right?
Right?
No offense. Well, I don't know. What you see in schools, the ones that kind of stick out to you in your memory are confident and reckless.
Right. I'm not talking about all. I mean, we're all trying to figure it out, teenagers. But some teenagers, the ones that get on the alert page, are more confident or appear to
Yes.
be confident.
The ones you know their name before
Yes.
they've entered your class.
Yeah, they're confident, and maybe not the best confidence, and they're reckless. They're willing to take chances.
Invincible. So they
Right.
think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Invincibility is that's another trait associated with teenagers sometimes.
I would say so.
Invincible. I mean,
Invincible.
we were teenagers once.
Did you think you were invincible?
Yeah, I'm sure I did not talk about I didn't think about my own mortality.
No.
I think about it more now as an adult, and I think about student mortality.
Well, and
just,
I didn't have any self-awareness either. I'm sure I was like
sure. No, I
totally
think about
cocky and all that stuff.
I was going to say the preciousness, but I mean just the act of like living
Yep.
is not like a given.
No.
So, and just being safe and being happy is not like a given all the time.
It's not. It's not.
So
It's a choice. Okay. This is where this idea spawns from, because I had a good student teacher experience when I taught at Carmel Middle School. This was like pretty interesting, and I had two co-teachers that were kind of both my supervising teachers. They co-taught band together, and one of them, I just remember her saying, she's like, "Yeah, I don't really let a 10-year-old dictate how I'm gonna feel for the day."
wow, that's a good
like,
one.
Oh, yes, I like it. That was good. Because I think some kid was kind of mean to her, and she just kind of like brushed it off.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's good. So I think about that, and I think about my early years teaching here at Concord, and I absolutely was intimidated by teenagers.
Do you think they knew that?
Gosh, I hope not. I'm sure they did. I'm sure they can sniff that out. But I just remember like, and maybe you can think of these moments too, like when there was something that came up, like a behavior or a thing that you should address, and you like second guess. You're like, how do I do this? Do I say something? Do I not say something?
Yes.
How do I say something? Am I going to be too mean? Am I going to be not mean enough? What do I do? What do I do? And you're just kind of thinking about that and getting stuck in that. And then like 6 minutes have passed, and then the kid's already set 3 other things on fire, and the moment's gone. You know.
Right.
That's what comes to mind when I think of this. I like to think that I don't do that kind of thing anymore. I don't think I do. I don't feel intimidated by teenagers anymore. But that is just something that kind of came to mind to me today as I was driving over here in the luscious back roads of Dunlap.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's common for teachers because you're close to being a teenager yourself if you come right out of college.
I was only 5 years,
right,
maybe 4.
So you have that. You're closer to being the age of your students than you are your co-teachers.
Yep.
And there is a sense of, I'm sure with any job, that you're trying to stake your claim. You're trying to establish your personality, right? And your I'm going to use the word control, but just the idea that you're, an adult figure.
Your management skills. I was listening to another teacher podcast, and they were talking about worst advice they've ever been given. And one of the things they said was, don't smile until December.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about that on here before. That is
I'll give you
idiotic.
$100, Jack, if you don't smile until... But you can't smile during band camp either. You'd die. You wouldn't. Yeah,
I wouldn't. you would just die. There's no... you can't smile during band camp. Ooh.
Wow.
Father Abraham.
Yeah. Head, shoulders, knees, and baby shark. Do. Okay. Well, you had talked about when you were student teaching at the high school level, you had like a little situation where they had to bring. We talked about this on the podcast. Like you brought in
Hinkle goes down.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah. What was that? Why did you do that? Why did you go down?
Because I asked a student to stack his chair up on the rack.
Oh, and you said, "Wait a second, buddy," and you put your hand out or something.
Don't touch me.
Oh gosh.
I was intimidated by that individual teenager.
Oh no.
Hinkle's down. And that's when the administrator said, "Yeah, you really shouldn't put your hand on a kid's shoulder." It's like, "Oh, noted. I'll write that one down. Thank you." Thank you.
Oh, Hinkle goes down.
But that was like, come on, what choice did I give that kid? I got it in his face. I'm not saying it's okay to shove your teacher down, but like, fight or flight, etc. You're 15 years old. I was not. I was escalating. I was not de-escalating. That would have been like
You were putting this wind in the sails.
Yes,
You had a industrial fan going.
We had a PD this year with two of our assistant principals. I remember we were in the lecture room in the freshman hallway, and they were showing us videos. Do you remember of like the teacher?
Me?
Please watch Steve Peterson
Getting
on
annihilated by freshmen.
How not to? No, they had those videos going. It was like a 90s video of a math class, and they're like, "Please go up to the board and do it." And the kid wouldn't get up and do the problem, and they were like escalating.
Yeah.
And then the two administrators who were live in the room with us were like demonstrating appropriate stances. You remember that? And they like got like in karate mode, and they were like this is like an aggressive stance, and like we're like looking like they're gonna play Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
And then they did this is a not aggressive stance, and then showed us that, and it was like very funny, and they meant it to be funny, but it was also kind of real.
Right.
And the whole thing was like what not to do if a kid is gonna escalate. And I'm pretty sure I could have been this year's video if you watched me and that kid on how to not rack a chair.
Right.
Gosh, I was stupid.
But
Poor 21-year-old Mr. Hinkle.
Yeah, but those things, though, help you learn. And then you're like, okay, now I know not what to do.
Yeah, and then if you ever make a podcast, you have some decent content.
Exactly. You don't accelerate when you're sliding on the ice. You don't even brake hard when you're on the ice. You just let it right out. You just go.
Going. So just that moment just kind of lives as just like I was intimidated by that kid. And I'm sure escalating the situation probably told that kid, I am intimidated by you.
Right.
Right? Because if I wouldn't have cared, I would have just been like, okay, buddy, let's take a breather. Take out your AirPods. Let's go get you a bag of chips and then come back and we'll rack this chair together. Right? I'm sure I would say something.
Yeah, you probably would have given him a pack of gummy bears, or like a, goldfish or something.
Buddy's having a bad day. Okay.
You need a snack, bud?
So that's where this stems from, because I can think of situations that both you and I have had in the last year or two of kids, not necessarily being mean or defiant, but just kids that, they've got a lot going on their plate.
Oh, I think they're mean and defiant.
And they do. They're searching it out. They're like, please take me. Like, let's go. Please
antagonize me.
Please antagonize me. Let's
please
see where
push
this can
my
go,
buttons.
buddy.
I would like to unleash the fury.
Yes. But obviously, that's not really how you roll. I don't roll like that anymore. And I just think about that, and I think about a lot of new teachers. I don't even want to say young, because I think that's just like a new teacher thing of how to address those kids.
Right. And there's always going to be those students that are going to try to push the buttons and try to push the boundaries.
And that's what makes teaching a puzzle. It's like, I don't want to say it's fun.
I thought you were going to say fun.
I did kind of lead up with that.
I was like, that's what makes it so fun.
It's not fun, but, you can't play the same video game on easy mode your whole life.
Right.
It is interesting because like when a kid has come up to me like that, I do think of it like a puzzle now. I don't think of it as like I'm intimidated. I'm like, oh, how do these pieces fit together?
Right. Brian Golden, our colleague, his dad is a longtime teacher at the middle school level, and his common response to behaviors has been like, well, that's their job.
Yeah.
They're that's their job. They're like trying to figure it out. And, hopefully if they have an episode of being defiant, that's like a one moment in time and they have a response that kind of helps them dial it back in. But, for students to think, more so than adults, but for teenagers to think like their way of thinking about it is the right way. Like, I'm going to stake my claim, but is the problem. Maybe not the action itself is so bad, but it's just this is the only way to do it.
Yep.
And not being able to see a bigger picture might be, that's what we, think about with human growth and development, and thinking about, having that episode as a 10-year-old, as a 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40-year-old, like how would you respond in those, and having more tools to be able to respond in an appropriate manner. But when you get to that moment of no return and there's an adult involved with a teenager at the point of no return, it's kind of frightening. It's awful.
Yeah, you're like the what's the meme you keep sending me all the time of Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
He's like sitting back there. You're just like, oh, how's this gonna go?
Fascinating. Yeah. So, and I think eventually, I think where teachers, maybe, if I could just speak for every teacher in the world right now, if every teacher like thinks that by raising their voice and speaking slower and louder is really going to influence the decisions being made, is like terrifying, because it's not. All it does is get your.
It's like you arguing with the Canva gods.
Control
P. Control P.
I said print.
Do it now.
Print
now.
Do you want a piece of this? Because you do not want this right now. It's.
But that's what it is, right? That's how they do it. That's
I
how
know.
You don't want to go there. Don't go there with me.
Oh, I just went there. I went there. Oh, because what are you gonna do? Don't do that.
What can you do?
Don't do that. What if I do? Oh, actually, nothing. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I just would like to say, there's a dog in my life now,
Okay.
and I'm trying to figure out when the dog barks outside. I can't yell at it.
When the dog's outside barking.
When the dog's outside barking,
Okay.
which you don't really want your dog barking outside because it's kind of rude and everything. But
Right.
I want her to know it's okay to play.
Right.
And
Are you playing with her at the time?
yeah, but I don't want her to bark. But I don't want to get louder because then that sends I don't want to say stop, quit doing, because that sends the message. To
But
be
she's
loud.
barking in a fun way, like.
I guess so. Yeah, I don't know how to.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. So what do you tell her?
We just go inside.
Oh. You want to know? Okay. Well, my dog, God bless him, he doesn't get the barkies outside. He gets the barkies inside.
Those aren't fun either.
No, I'm like, dude, that is a squirrel. The squirrel has a right to be outside right now, and you don't. You're inside with Dad, okay? And that squirrel that you see is fine. The mail carrier, let him be. Let him be.
Those brownies sitting on the table.
Don't touch them, or you're gonna have to go to the spinning
Roll
chair
out the
blues.
spinny chair.
Okay. So
Sorry, you were speaking on behalf of all teachers.
all
I cut you
teachers.
off.
Well,
I got
it never goes well when you choose to escalate. Like, don't do that. You do that one more time, if we're going down to the office. They're like
you
"Bink."
promise?
Yeah, I'm good. Okay. So, has there been a time I've been intimidated by teenagers? Absolutely. And there, in my early years teaching in Kentucky, and Harlan County, Kentucky, I had a boy in my music appreciation class.
I love this story, dude. I love this story.
I'm not going to say his name but I want to say his name because his name makes me smile every time I say it, but I don't want to say it to protect the innocent. But
can I write this as a concert band tune next year?
yeah. Yes. Okay. I taught this class called Music Appreciation.
But you really called it
Music Depreciation. And I think I've already talked about this. It started with it was the dumping ground.
Yes.
It was the dumping ground.
We have not talked about this story,
Right.
but we talked about
But
this.
it started with 30 kids. In the second semester, there were 4 kids. They took them all out because they thought it was going to be watching musicals.
Was it the COVID school? No. Okay,
No.
sorry.
No, it was not.
It was not hybrid school year.
It was not hybrid school year. I had 4 kids. Anyway, but this boy was doing something obnoxious, I'm sure. And I got on his case, and I'm sure I was a ridiculously bad teacher. I really have had a lot to make up on in my so I got in an argument with this boy, and he stood up and he said, "Do you want to go?" Like he wanted to fight me in the middle of class. He stood up and kind of got up to me, and he's like, "You want to go?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to go." I was like thinking, first of all, this guy would have clearly killed me in the classroom. It would have been one less
crime scene.
It would have been one less teacher in the world. But I did take his backpack and I threw it out the band door, which I don't know if I should have done, but I found out that he had a bunch of CDs in it and the CDs cracked. So he was not happy about that, but I sent him on his way to the office. But he wanted to go. Okay?
This is so luscious. I love hearing this every time.
But then there was a moment, probably my most humiliating. Well, like, shut up, Darnell. Tell him that kid to shut up. That wasn't like humiliating. It was, but it wasn't like. I mean, I was a practice teacher. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
But when I was a band director at the same school, and we did the Christmas parades, and we had to do 3 Christmas parades in southern Kentucky. You had to do 3 Christmas parades.
Just enough.
And our band of 20. So we we had to march from the elementary school through town up to the band room. That's where it usually stopped. But this year, the mayor wanted us to go up to the next elementary school, which was another mile down or up the holler kind of stuff. And it was like nobody up there. They wanted us to go another mile.
And is it hilly?
It was in 5,000-foot mountains. It was near Black Mountain, Kentucky, which is the highest peaks in the Kentucky. And very hilly, very windy, very dangerous 2-lane roads with ditches on the sides and houses that were like way back. And like, honestly, there were not that many houses. Plus, it was 20 degrees that day. And I had 20 kids. And so we're like going down the street, boom, 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 you know, doing our thing and playing whatever we were playing. Some marching band.
Santa's Rockin'
Holiday thing. And so we're up there and we're going, and I did not tell the kids we were going to not stop at the band room. I did not tell them that because I thought it was going to not go well.
So see, which, by the way, to the listeners, if you've watched a parade, which I'm guessing most people have, like the people who just kind of walk around, throw out candy, that's like you're walking a mile or two, right? But if you're marching in a parade, you're holding an instrument and you're releasing air and breathing in a rhythmically way that does not align.
And you're holding your body in a different carriage, and like kids are playing drums, and
it's hard. It's hard.
So we were expecting to turn at the band room and like, you know, peel off and go there. That's where it would normally end. And I didn't. I kept on going. And I was at the front of the band.
The kids are like,
boom, boom, boom. They were. And I turned around, and it was like, I'm trying to think of what movie I'm watching that would, it was like, you know.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yes. It was like they were running. There was like, so I had like 20 kids in the band. I think there were 10 that ran away with their instruments. Ran. And they ran towards the band room. Ran. Meanwhile, and they're going down the street, and I see half the band going, and I see half the band going down the street. So I think I have to be like, you know, General MacArthur and be like, you shall not perish, you must go on, you know. So I go run back there to the kids that dropped out, and I gave them the what for. I yelled at them. I was like not compassionate. I was like, I don't care. This is what we're supposed to do. You cannot stop. And they were like, we're stopping. And I said, well, you're at the band room, and I'm not opening the band room for you. It's locked. Okay. So I go run back with the band, and the kids are like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then it's down to 10 kids, and we march another mile up. We get to the school, and I'm so mad the entire time. I'm thinking what I'm going to tell the band when I get back about pride and respect and all this kind of stuff. We're going to sit down in the band room and talk about it. So we get to the end of the parade. The only way we could get back was that we had to jump into the EMS. We had to jump into the ambulances because it was a mile up. So we rode back in ambulances all the way back to the band room. And the kids were all in cars with their parents in the heat, right? And I opened the band room, and I had a line of parents. Now, this was parents, not teenagers, that wanted a piece of me. They ripped me up one side and down another. How could you do this to my kid? How could you do this? How could you be so mean? I mean, they tore me up. Now, nobody put a hand on me until I got into the band room. Then there was a boy there who was quite large, who had played on the football team, and his sister was in the band. She was not small. I mean, she was not large. She was a small kid, and she was kind of frail. She had dropped out of the parade, and I had dressed those kids down, right? So that boy came up to me, and he was like, who are you? He like gave me the riot act. Like in the band room, he got in my face and was yelling at me, like got chest to chest with me.
Were you intimidated by this teenager?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I don't know if he was if he was a senior or had just graduated, but he was a big kid.
Okay.
He was not a mister. He was a kid. And he goes, buddy, I had to knock your block off. And I go, I'm sure you could. and I was thinking in my mind, this is going to hurt. I figured he was just going to clock me. I figured he was going to punch me in the face.
Sure you could.
I'm sure
That's
you could.
got to be a lonely feeling.
That was a lonely feeling. I remember there was a few other people in the room at the time, and I was like, I'm going to get punched here. But I was like, what am I going to do? Like,
Right. Yeah, you can't punch the kid
I
back.
can't punch him back. I probably didn't even know I was doing self-defense. I was just like, whatever. Okay, if you're going to, like, strike me, go ahead. But, like, so that was terrifying. So that was a moment of trying to tell a bunch of that was an example of not having clear expectations, having a conflict of interest, and not really explaining what the process was, and then having a really poor response emotionally to it. Now, did I think it was okay that they dropped out? No. Could I have handled it better? Yes. Would I handle it better? Yes. So, I mean, I have like a lot of things that I would have done differently, but that was kind of a terrifying kind of idea, right? To think that, you know, that, I mean, you tell the kids you always have a choice. I'm not telling the kids that are listening to this now, like, drop out whenever you want. That's not what I'm saying. But the kids always have a choice. How they behave, they always have a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so exercising that was a choice for them. And then how I respond is my choice too. But I didn't have the teacher tools to do that.
We come back to a line a lot in this podcast, but also in our teaching lives from Ken Snook, the master teacher that was on an episode once, that a good performance is a reflection of the student's hard work, and a poor performance is the reflection of the teacher's lack of preparation and planning or poor teaching.
Yeah.
I just think that applies so well to anything that we do in our profession. And
Planning.
and execution, you know?
Yes.
And obviously you kind of chose to serve yourself up for this, like with this story.
Yes.
But I think a lot of teachers out there are so tempted to look elsewhere and not at themselves,
Mhm.
like when things don't go well, because there's always going to be something to find, always something to blame.
There's always going to be kids that misbehave,
Yeah.
whether it's like at a level 1 or, heaven forbid, at a level 5. But that's just part of the lesson plan,
Right.
to help correct or acknowledge or expose or just counsel or help them.
And I wish I could have seen more calm responses. Like, I don't. Not that that wasn't necessarily modeled for me, but in college you're spending not a lot of time in the classroom.
No,
You're in your own
theoretical.
classroom. Yeah, and I wish I could have like watched film, so to speak, of just like, here's how this is handled, or like watch those silly classroom management videos.
Yes.
And the problem with those videos though is that it's all scripted.
Right.
It's not authentic.
Right.
And seeing the magic happen in the classrooms with an authentic teacher,
Yeah.
like authentically being themselves and like dismantling that situation is like, that's gorgeous.
It is.
I'd watch
That
YouTube
is.
shorts of that for
Right.
hours. It's good. And I wish I had that sooner. And I mean, I had to figure, I was given help here with you and other Concord teachers, but like I wanted to figure that out sooner for myself. But I think I kind of finally figured out who I was, and I became less intimidated by teenagers when I kind of figured out myself a little bit more and how to, handle those situations and just stay calm. I guess it's like it's not a big deal. Why are we making this fun?
Right. And I think some people have said, never argue with a student.
No.
Because it once you step into that ring, it's not wins and losses, but I guess you would say like the kid wins.
Yes.
And it just puts you in a very vulnerable position.
Right.
And it doesn't really put them in a good position because they're encouraging arguments with an authority figure. I mean, there is a time and a place for that, I guess, if somebody is like in danger or there's like a moral activity going on, but not talking about that. And like, that is not really that's not a really good problem solving skill.
No, I'm just thinking like, a classic one would be like, put your phone away.
Right.
And they go, no. Then what, Teachers may take it.
Right.
They may physically try to grab it out of their hand. They may, write the kid up. They may yell at the kid and say, no, give me your phone. And like that goes back and forth a bit. I don't know if you taught me this or maybe it was like a college thing, but like the basic thing to do is give the kid a choice.
Yeah.
Okay, you're choosing to keep your phone out. Here are your options. You can give it to me, or I'm going to write you up and I'm going to have to send an email to administration and they'll come and collect you and your phone. So which would you like?
Right.
I don't know if that's what I do now, but that was like one of the most basic things that I was taught, like right away, like very black and white, give them a choice.
Right. And then I think also being sure that you can back up what you say.
Yes. Yeah, if you don't follow through, you are setting a precedent for yourself and for the student and for the other classmates watching,
Right.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
Yeah. And I was puzzled in the last couple of years with some moments I had of being in a mentorship role with like students that were freshmen and having
Is he going to do it? You got to do it now.
I don't even know what he said.
Okay.
It's
so luscious. But that's like that's like the prime example of just like not being intimidated by a teenager.
No, Jack and myself both taught the prep for college and career class, and we had like 20 some students, and we did help them prep for college and career, and it was kind of a study hall, academic mentoring kind of thing / study hall.
Mm-hmm.
And the second year I got into it, I had some boys that just had a really hard time understanding how to act in public school.
84 minutes, study hall. What could go wrong?
And I think it stemmed from the boy was sitting on the ground with his hood up.
Yeah.
I think that's how it started.
Yeah.
And I was making my rounds, and this boy had been on the behavior radar before, and I had gone behind enemy lines and tried to establish a relationship with him, and, and most days it worked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
He, would talk to us and joke around with us, but I said something like, okay, we're not sitting on the floor today. And I said, you need to stand up. And I said, and you need to take off your hood. And there were two responses. One, he said a very derogatory thing to me, like, why are you being such a today?
Mm-hmm.
That was like at a conversational volume. I had just said, please take off your hood. And it was, why are you being, and I was like,
it's
wow.
the meme of the guy that goes, that one?
Yeah. I was
like your eyes open.
I was like, I
what?
said, and I asked him again, And then he had another pretty bold statement for me.
A little spicier.
Yeah, a little spicy. That was directed right at me, and that was all within 30 seconds of me just talking like I am now. And then I said, okay. There's some other kids that were on there. They were like, dude, calm down. Don't talk like that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I said, okay, well, so I just communicated with the main office. And I said, okay. I said, you can stay here right now, or you can go out in the office.
Give him a choice.
I said, you can go out in the hallway, and they'll come down and get you. And they did. And I never saw that boy again.
But that's like so. I mean, you should feel good about that because, well, one, I mean, I don't know what you felt on the inside, but the outside you stayed the same, right? And so you handled that really well. And secondly, you did nothing.
No.
You're like, I mean, once there are a few magic words in public school that once they're said, it's over your pay grade as a teacher. You're like, okay,
yep,
I'm gonna call somebody.
Yeah, and but that didn't. Yeah, I was fine with what I said and how I handled it, and I wasn't. I mean, there wasn't anything in my mind that like I did anything wrong. I mean, the child was having a hard time playing school, as they would say. This boy had a hard time playing school, so he was invited not to play school anymore, and to find an alternative location after a number of tries.
But you could think of just think of any, like different personalities.
Oh gosh!
Right?
Oh, you could
make that a VR headset game.
Oh,
see how every teacher
no,
responds
you
to
could have
that.
gone back to like your 21-year or 22-year-old self, or if you were having a bad day, or
you listen here. You're gonna get that chair and you're gonna take your hood off. And I don't care what you call me.
You want a piece of this?
You want to go?
You want to
go?
You want me to knock your
I'm
block
gonna
off?
Control P you into tomorrow.
Control P. Control P. Control P. Control P. Yeah, I mean that could have been. They should have that kind of. They should do VR for student teachers.
Okay, one of the best things
Yeah.
that we did as my freshman year, this was like one of the first things I did in college.
Why music?
Why not music?
That's what I say. Okay.
Did you have NAFME or like NEA? It was like National Association for Music Education.
Yeah.
So we had to like be in a chapter of that
Yeah.
for our school, and they would do monthly meetings.
Yeah,
The first monthly meeting at Butler, it was awesome. They always bought pizza, and they do like role play skits.
Oh, perfect.
It was awesome. And all the upperclassmen would role play as kids or students, and they'd take all the freshmen, put them in as the teacher, and have them like handle situations.
Great.
It was so cool. And they would do ones with like kids like coming into a teacher's office and telling them like something really personal, and the teacher would have to figure it out. Or they'd start having a parent come in and like really just like tear into a teacher. Mine was that I think a student, and this is like all role play, was like about to tell me that she was going to have a baby or something. Boy. And I like remember sitting in that chair as like 17-year-old or 18-year-old me and being like, oh boy. But that's what they did. And
that's
a
great exercise.
It was a great exercise, especially because it was super funny because the freshmen just totally biffed on everything. I remember one kid, oh my gosh. It's like they said, Mr. Smith, there was like 3 girls coming into the office. Like, we have something to tell you. And he like so confidently said, all right, whatever happens in this office stays in this office.
Oh boy.
And everyone in the audience was like, oh.
No.
Wrong move, buddy.
Nope.
But that was such a great experience because it was funny, and you always kind of were coached in how to go. Because as soon as like you were like getting toast as the teacher, like an upperclassman would like tap in and you'd go out, and then they'd handle the situation from there.
We should do that with kids now.
That'd be great.
Student leadership. Role play. That's great.
It was really fun. And how many times do you get to do that in such an authentic way in your career, in like the practice sense? Like I think about doing that like at a staff meeting now, and it would feel totally different because it's not. I don't know if it would have the same sense of like authenticity. But like back then, it was like really exciting, and everyone looked forward to that first meeting because we knew we got to do that.
Oh, that's a great thing.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that is. Probably think about those things though, as a teacher, and when you've had confrontation with kids, it does make you feel anxious, or you can remember how it felt, and how you felt when that boy brushed you back.
Yes. I mean, I remember just like the adrenaline flowing, like as soon as the danger sense goes off, like something's going to happen.
Yep.
And, you know, the tough part of that is that you don't get to really think about it.
Yeah. Well, wow, you just walked right into that one, Jack, because here's the thing. I bet you have, maybe not. You're pretty smart. You probably have.
Gee, thanks.
You've thought about that, though, about how that went down, and you've probably played it again of how you could do it again.
Absolutely.
So we used to have an administrator here, Dan Cunningham, the principal, and this was not about student behavior. This was about school safety. And he would talk about making sure that you play through scenarios in your head.
Like what?
Like if you're in a classroom and there were an emergency, you know, if a student had a seizure, what would you do? What would you do if you're outside and a student had an emergency? What would you do inside if there was a violent intruder? You know, and he talked about that being involved with, keeping people safe, about thinking about that in life. Like, what would you do if you were in a dangerous situation, like in a shopping mall, in a shopping, a food store, grocery store, and not to make things pessimistic and not to make things stressful, but to kind of exercise in that process.
And it's so easy to think like that would never happen in my
exactly.
room.
So that was the idea. Yeah. And there was no harm in going through it. And it wasn't like you were trying to create like a desperate time and negative time, but you've gone back and you visited that. And certainly I've gone back to Kentucky so many times in my mind about how I taught. And even situations here, obviously at Concord, like how I could have handled things differently and more positive or more helpful or more tender or more insightful. I don't know, but sure, I think about that.
Yes. You replaying stuff, how it could have gone differently, how you could have. Yeah. That's real. That's real. What would you say to the kid today? Boy, I ought to knock your block off.
I probably would have said the same thing. I was actually pretty happy with my response. I'd be like, get out of here. You're like, whatever. Yeah, probably something like that. Thank God I didn't say something, something just like, yeah, my block's not going anywhere, so come at me, bro.
Yeah, what you have... Well, we did talk about this before the podcast, and I feel like it's worth mentioning that, like, you have gotten your block knocked off.
I have got my block knocked off by a kid.
School.
And in public school.
He didn't mean to hit you.
No.
Not that it makes it a lot better, but...
doesn't make it hurt any less. I was in the piano lab a number of years ago, and there were a bunch of students down in this part of the school, and it was a dead end, and it was picture day, and there was like hundreds of kids.
It was picture day?
It was picture day. There was like hundreds of kids crammed into the one way that it was the dead end of the school.
No.
And I heard this teacher come out, go, help, I need help. And I'm like in the piano lab, and I go out there, and there's like a boatload of kids packed around these two other kids in this small corridor, and there was blood on the wall, and there was blood on the floor, and there's blood all over these two boys, and they were just going after each other with a fist fight. Two boys.
Well, I hope you watched that training video at the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, and it's like, if
fluids.
it's wet and it's not yours, don't touch it. And I was like, okay, boys are gonna kill each other. I gotta jump in, and I was just thinking, please, can there please be a football coach in the area? I was like looking down the halls, and there was nobody. And I was it. There was the other teacher, my colleague, and myself. And these boys were in it.
I mean, there's blood.
There's blood. I mean, they were going at it, and unfortunately, people got all excited about the fight, and there was like a ring around him. So I got in there. I don't know. I know what I was trying to do. I was trying to separate them.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually trying to stop the fight. I was actually trying to separate them.
Right.
So I kind of charged into the circle, but with my head down, with my arms in front of me like I was going to tackle someone.
You must have had more adrenaline than caffeine in your bloodstream.
I was like, and I went for it. So
6 cups a day.
I did like I was going to tackle somebody.
Yeah.
And but I was like going for their hips.
Okay.
So just kind of pushed them away from the situation, and they were swinging, and I got slugged in the head, and I got a knot on my head from those guys, and then I had blood all over my shirt. It was picture day, darn it!
Did you have blood on that shirt when you got your picture taken?
I don't think so.
I want that picture to exist.
I had to come back up into my office and change into like band clothes, and change and like get washed up because there was like blood on me. And yeah, so that boy, one of the boys hit me, and then thank God there were some other boys that once I did that initial surge, they jumped in too and helped keep the boys apart. And it was gnarly. And I remember being not upset. I just remember like the adrenaline was like, oh yeah. And then I came back to piano class. They're like,
anyway,
are you okay?
C major. Do.
Oh, and then we were like on lockdown for the next 2 hours.
And did you still have, when you came back to piano class, did you still have the blood on you?
Yeah. And the kids are like, you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. I remember them being very sympathetic and very kind.
That's good.
And we did have to spend like 2 hours in that class together. But I did sneak out at one point to go change clothes. Somebody covered my class.
Could you teach after that?
No, it's kind of weird. And my son was in school too, and he goes, "Dad, I heard you were in a fight. Heard you got in a," and I was like,
"Dad,
yeah.
Did you win? Dad, did you win?
You should have seen the other guy."
Let's see the other guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was terrifying. And again, I'm glad my instinct was correct because it was not the right thing to stand to the side. But I was afraid.
Sure.
I absolutely was afraid. I'm not a punch seeker kind of guy. I don't know if you could
punch seeker
more than punch the eyes. I'm gonna knock your block off. You know,
ESPN thing.
So that was. I hope I never have to go through that again. But I was pleased with my response. And I don't even know if I thought about that, but I do not like fights. They make me feel really awful and creepy and scared. I hate seeing it because people are in like rage mode. I don't like to see that.
The kids love talking about it, and it grosses me out because they'll be like, "Hey, did you see the fight in the cafeteria?" And I was like, "Guys, let's not. Let's not. It's not good. Don't circulate that.
Don't do that." So again, I was happy with my response, but
I feel like you should get like a commemorative pin from the school.
I should.
Just like I took a punch, you know. Like, you know, at the end of the year ceremonies, they give the 15-year service awards.
The punch award, attaboy punch award.
Punching
well,
bag.
maybe you could get like 2 years put towards your retirement. Early retirement.
But then I think teachers would seek that out.
Oh, yeah.
Come at me, bro.
Come at me. Yeah, there's stage fights.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's pretty intense though. Like I was, you know, taken aback when the kid pushed me to the floor. You're so like pumped up with adrenaline though. Like you don't feel anything,
right?
You know. And I don't remember it hurting, but I just feel very thankful. Like I've never been.
Yes.
You know, and maybe I will be someday.
Yeah.
Who knows? But that.
Bah. I'm just like thinking. Bah. No, yeah. So that is a part of school, though. That is part of public school, or anytime that you're around a group of students, like camps, right?
Yeah.
I
would say that's a thing in life. I'm sure everyone's seen punches being thrown.
But as an adult, though, with youth, you're kind of like there's like a moral code that you gotta protect and help stop in some way, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Calling for somebody else. But it's like different than being at the UP. Well, maybe it's not different. That's a whole different episode. But if you're at the mall and there's two guys fighting, like
Like, go back to Barnes and Noble.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like I don't know. That's a different question of scruples. Okay, so we're almost out of time.
That was a lot.
Woo! We're back, Jack.
We're back. This is season 3.
Season 3. We're gonna get all tatted up. Season 3 chops.
Season 3
Chops.
Chops. Wow.
Chops tattoos.
And Chop's birthday was last week. It turned 1. I got an email from Spotify.
That was the Menden.
Menden.
Wow.
1-year-old. Look at us now.
We're so much more wise. No, it's good.
Our sound quality's better. I'll say that.
Absolutely. Okay, well, if you like what I hear, if you like what I hear, if you like what you hear, follow us on Chops Podcast on Spotify and on Apple. And then you can find fun little reels that our director of technology, Jack, puts together fun reels on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube if you want to see the full thing of us sitting here drinking out of our Chops mugs. So,
Yeah, it's real.
okay, we'll be back here next week. Maybe. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Okay. So for Steve Peterson,
And Jack Hinkle.
we're out of here.
See ya.